with the tap lining, these reptilians and other aliens, etc., they are in a desperate situation to survive, and they've come to such a low point that they actually, like parasites, have to attach themselves to others that have more awareness and better body types, so they suck the life out of them, just like a parasite would suck the life out of anything, just like a mosquito gets on us and starts sucking our blood, etc. This is what they do. And this is where all these ideas came from, like vampires and werewolves and what have you. This is them. This is how they are. They are parasites, and they've come through the centuries and to the point where we are today. And many people see these individuals, and they do shapeshift, and they see them in their dreams. We have many experiences as we're presenting our Skype groups, etc., where people are sharing their experiences, and they see the reptilians. They see their tap lines, they see the influence, and they see the corporate world that mainly is ruled by this. Basically, the whole earth is, in the business world, and what is taking place. Again, it's about human farming. It's not about the appearance that we see. It's just like a business where we see the storefront. It looks a particular way. It can say, Sears or Walmart or, whatever it says, Big O Tires or, dentist or doctor. But it's really what's taking on behind the scenes. And again, there's always a projected image or an idea or a front that's created as to what is really taking place. So we have, as an idea, as a reality, as an invention, we have the vaccines of today. The idea is marketed to people, oh, these are very helpful, and these will, take care of a lot of things that you don't need in your life, when actually, when a person investigates what's in the vaccines, they don't want to take them because they're basically poisons. And they're purposely done. Things are purposely poisoned down. Again, it's another control factor because people are becoming too aware. And as people become too aware, they no longer agree to the deception. It's just very simplified, but in its own way, it's very complex because, again, you have the unconscious part, and that is where the tap lining comes in. And so I have very well specified this. Now, you have people in the world like David Icke and others like that are very popular, and they talk about the reptilians, but they really don't talk about the tap lining and the other levels of life. They're very one-dimensional. They have a lot of knowledge here. They've discovered what's going on, but they don't know how to get through the matrix. They don't know how to get out of it. And many of these people, they use the God idea, and that is that you're to burn candles, you're to use your Bible and pray and all these things. Well, actually, you're praying to the reptilians, because the Lord God, the Kalam God, and the mental realm, and that basically controls much of creation and all his soldiers through many realms, etc., his armies, etc., you're praying to him. He's a reptilian God, is what he is. And so, but this is not seen. This is the devil God that people pray to, and this is what the reptilians first brought to this earth. They brought worshiping and prayer. They taught their invented humanoids to look to these gods so that they would be deceived for lifetimes and become their supporters, because they don't want people to be what you might say free thinkers. They want to maintain what people are thinking and looking to so that they have control over them. Otherwise, they don't have a support. And so it's really all about agreement. So as people, again, keep agreeing, and the love idea that we see and the godly this and that ideas, it all goes to the reptilians for the most part. And so there is a real love in life, which is like the sun shining, and then there's the emotional attachment ideas that the reptilians take advantage of. They take advantage of the sensations of the individuals, their feelings, their happiness, their love ideas that pertain to the physical world only, and this is what people don't see. And that is that as you have the real connection with the new you, yes, you still have these things, but then you start to better understand and see the limitations that are taking place with yourself, to where you still have the feelings, you still have your memory, you still have the physical senses, you have all these things, but now all of a sudden you start to recognize that you don't need the unnecessary attachments to these things. You don't have to agree to the restrictions that have encumbered you for lifetimes, actually. And all of a sudden you start waking up and you start seeing this pattern that's taking place. This is the real wake up, to where you see the overall of creation, not just the lesser parts in creation, or the one-dimensional physical part, because most people think they're just a physical body. And again, this is just a vehicle that we're using, and we have 4 other vehicles that we also have to deal with. And this in its own way is a real burden for us to have to deal with this, and especially to recognize what's taking place, because it seems so real. But these bodies are really animated, is what they are. They're just like animation we see in the movies. There's really no difference. They've been created, and we realistically created them. We really did, with our real awareness. We're very creative, and so it's getting to that point where we recognize how we've come through creation, and how we recognize what we have created, so that we can wake up. So this is where creation is necessary. Nothing is negated. It's not about good or bad. It's like a clump of clay, and you decide how you're going to create it, but it's all the same clump of clay. And through that creation, you start to see what you're doing. You start to recognize where you're at. That's all it is. And eventually, you recognize a bigger picture. You recognize and learn to perceive and see that there's more than creation. And also, eventually, you stand in an all-aliveness, more so than just spirit, the spirit idea, or the spiritual idea, or the consciousness idea, or the God conscious idea, which is just in creation itself. But you stand in this all-aliveness, this sound-light reality that life is, and you learn to recognize and perceive the true language life is. And it's more so than what the mind can consider. It's a true reality, without flaw, without cause and effect. So, but while we're in creation, we have to struggle through the effects of ourselves and what we've agreed to, and tap lining is part of that. And we have to deal with others that, just like in this world, tap lining is basically agreements that we have. And as long as we agree to the systems and the restriction that they create, well, we are tap lined. You see, you can be in the world, but you don't have to agree with them. In other words, people can vote or not to vote, and that is that the idea is that, well, you have the right to vote. Well, you also have the right not to vote. This is just an example. And so voting is agreement. Not voting is that you're not agreeing, but the system still goes on. You're not rebelling against the system. You're just deciding, well, no, I choose not to vote. I'm not interested. But you're still living on the earth. You're still doing what you're doing. You still have the body, and you're still having your experiences, personal or whatever, but you're simply not agreeing to the restrictions that others have created. And again, the system and the governmental system and the voting and all that, that was invented for people to agree to the support system. And it's very interesting to note that most people are not agreeing to vote. They're starting to see through the system and the fallacy of it. And again, it's not about rebelling. And so the system itself recognizes that also. They see what people are doing, and so they will do everything they can to create a marketing ploy for people to continually to agree to them, and it will even go to the point of intimidating them or creating restrictions that they must agree to the system, wants to keep them in any way they can. And this is the interesting thing about the gods of man that people don't understand, and that is that the gods of man are deceptive. People think, well, God is holy, all-knowing, and all-loving. Well, this is the marketing ploy that's been given to people, so when they believe in these ideas, they just figure that God is unrestricting, but actually God is very intimidating, and it's proven in the so-called holy works or what have you, and that is the gods of man did not write the Bible. The reptilians wrote the Bible and stuff. The gods did not come down and write these things, but they're in reference to the God, and as you look through these doctrines, you'll see all the restrictions, etc., because they implement the restrictions there, and so people agree to these restrictions, thinking that, well, this is part of God. We're to have these restrictions. You're to be good in a particular way, so we need the restrictions. But actually, they're subtle agreements or subliminal agreements to where you're held and then tap-lined by them. So this again, where the love idea comes in, so they love their God, which is fine. Anybody can love anything they want, but what they're doing is they're actually loving the tap lines that the gods are giving them. So through this agreement, the gods are controlling people, but they don't see this on a conscious level. So there's a basic idea of tap lining, and for the most part, everybody is tap lined by the reptilians until they wake up and recognize differently. Well, we're very fortunate to know the real guides, so these things are taken care of on the real side in our various bodies, to where when we do the new you, these tap lines and these agreements are broken up to where we have a real connection beyond creation itself, which all exists here and now, and we start to recognize more so to where we're not restricted and we're not at the mercy of these agreements any longer, so that when we step out of here, we can actually go beyond the heavens of man and be the free individuals we are, beings of light brighter than the sun itself, because we have that recognition, and we don't need the limitations of creation anymore, where most people do. They need creation to survive. We, at some point, we don't. We become self-sufficient. We don't need anything to survive. We are in a wonderful, real position of recognizing that life is endless, the real universes are endless, and there's no cause and effect restriction, karma, in the real universes, which is cool. But in the meantime, while we're here, we have these bodies, so we learn to better take care of ourselves. But for the most part, most people are at the mercy of being tap-lined by the reptilians, whether they believe it or not, whether they see it or not. But they will experience the effects, and they can go to the doctor and say, well, I'm not feeling good, or I have this illness. But many times it's actually from tap lining, it's actually from astral tap lining that the doctors cannot see. They cannot see this at all, so they'll just give them pills and what have you. It'll be kind of a cover-up, or go through some diet or what have you, which is understandable, and that can help too. But really, it's an unconscious agreement to the systems, and more so, we have so much propaganda, marketing ploy here, that it's very heavy, it's very thick, and the movies that we're seeing, the created entertainment industry is full of subliminals that we agree to without consciously seeing and recognizing what we're agreeing to. And so there are many subliminals here that are created for people to agree to that they're not recognizing. So this is what we do. We provide the guidance and the education so people can better recognize what's taking place. So we're not spiritual, we're not religious, we're not political, we're not transcendental, we're not any of these things. We're simply like the air we breathe, like the sun is shining. We simply make sense of the environment we're in. We simply show people how to learn to recognize their own restrictions that are created by others and themselves. That's it. That's all we're doing. It's a very simple process, and it's a lot of fun. So again, you look at the birds and the butterflies and the bees that fly around us. They don't agree to these restrictions. They just do what they do, and each one of us can do the same thing and get beyond what we've agreed to for the longest time, for many lifetimes of unconscious behavior, to where we're no longer the effects, to where this becomes the real cure for all, and that is your real awareness. How's that, Miss Kelsey?
Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Well, that's for everybody. So again, this is the basic idea. So yes, I'm exhausted, Chris. So this is episode 1.
Okay. Do you have time for one more quick question? Kind of a funny one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Uh, Kelsey brought up some of the names of governor lords on the realms: astral, causal, mental, etheric, and so on. So there are others, and my question is about the physical. So, like the astral realm, the astral heavens, the first heavens of man, they've Jot Naranjan. He's the governor lord there. What about the physical? Does the physical have a governor lord? And if it does, who would that be?
Well, it's what also is taking place. In other words, over all of this, it's a hierarchy, just like we have here. What we're seeing in the physical with the governments, the kings, queens, presidents, whatever you have here, that control and decide basically what is taking place in the world. The Kalam God is overall of these, and then through every level there are other lords and individuals. In other words, it's a hierarchy. It's just like here, you're seeing the reflection. You have like the President of the United States, and then you have the Congress, and you have the senators, and then you have different agencies. You'll have, the FDA, the EPA. You have all these agencies. You have the FBI, the CIA. You have the police force. You have security guards. You have crossing guards. You have school teachers. You have lawyers, doctors, whatever. You see the hierarchy that's been created from so-called, lower positions to upper positions. Again, these are ideas that we use, or lower class to middle class to upper class. Again, these ideas have been created by the people that create these systems because they're control factors. So, yes, this all exists, and as people go through the process, they learn to see, and identify with these. So we can't name them all, and they actually have various names. It's like the Lord God. It's like the Kalam God. We just call him the Kalam God. Or when I came through Paul Twitchell's creation, it was called the Kal, Kal, and I renamed it as the Kalam God, specifically for my adventures and what I created. It really doesn't matter. Now, this individual is known by hundreds of names, and it just depends upon which created religion or belief or transcendental system that exists upon the earth or in the other parts of the creative realm that people relate to. But there's one central reality, and so again, when people go in for their Social Security checks, or they're paying a parking ticket or something with the local police, well, as you go through the hierarchy, where does it go to? It goes to one central location. It all goes to what we term here as the federal government, and then it filters on down to these different things. So it appears as though, okay, we're dealing with the local police, but this has all been created from the original system, you see. And just like the religions of the world, most people don't realize there's so many different ones. It can be, Catholics, Protestants, Lutherans, whatever people, whatever idea they all came from the original one. And these other systems are like agencies. These other religions are the same thing. It's a process that's been created. But what people don't see is that how it's all interconnected. And it's interconnected mostly invisibly. So, most of the corporations in this world, even though they seem independent, they can be connected to the GMO foods, the Monsantos, and with people with the internet, they're seeing these things all the time, like Monsanto. We're into health and whatever. And Monsanto bought off, Whole Foods and these other areas. In other words, in this world, money talks. So it's the same with these systems. The unknown gods that are created, because most people, when they see their gods, or what is termed as their gods, they see the fallacy of it. It's a fallacy. It's kind of like in The Wizard of Oz, where it's this old guy behind the curtain, and that's really all it is. But until they see that, there's a big mystery there, thinking that, well, oh, God's a mystery. But it's all filtered down into the physical, and we're seeing a reflective distortion with the political and religious systems here, and the spiritual systems, and the educational systems, and scientific, of what exists on the other levels. But it's just that most people aren't aware of those things. Some of the people that are in these positions here, they know about them, but most of them don't. They really don't. Most people are the puppets of others, and they're on an unconscious level dealing with these factors. So the whole of creation is a big discovery itself, and this is where the real universal guides come in, because they know the whole of creation. They know how it all works. But for the most part, the saviors and saints and the angels and all these things that we've come to know over lifetimes, they don't know how the system works. It's just, it sounds good. They know a certain amount of knowledge. They know a little more than the humans, but really they really don't know the way out of creation and the real universes, and they do not have the awareness, the real awareness that the real guides have. So we're fortunate to know that. But again, this is a process that as people become familiar, and it depends upon how they've been brought up for lifetimes and the different studies, past teachings that they've been through, and to better understand. But again, most people become very emotionally attached to what they've been brought through, and that's kind of where they stick themselves. So a lot of people will stay in creation for a lot more lifetimes and have to deal with whatever is taking place on the earth, and it's getting a lot worse. So those people that are now in this environment, when they come back into the future, it's not going to be the same. It's going to be a lot worse, and for the most part, they're going to come through deformed bodies because of what has taken place. So does that kind of give you a little idea there, Chris?